1963. This airplane behind you is really the star of our fleet in the museum. And this is the airplane that the employees bought the company in 1982. I know Blake Boo, one of our former employees, used to work for me. He's here, and he's one of the volunteers that helped pay for this airplane. So it took a lot to do. It took a heck of an organization to put together in 1982. It was one of the first years that Delta ever lost money. And so the three flight attendants had a great idea. So, we ought to do something for the company. Delta's been so good to us. Let's give something back. So they put together this idea to buy this airplane and give it to our chairman, Mr. Garrett. At the time, Mr. Garrett, just so you know, just passed away, and we got a funeral right here. You're sitting today, right by this airplane that the employees have given to him. So it was a pretty nice event. As funerals go, great event. One thing that we want to get into a little bit today, I don't want to take much of your time, but I want to give you an idea of what my talk's about, and that's strictly about a national airline policy. We don't have one in this country. I never thought I'd get up here and advocate the government doing anything to help us, because they usually don't. But it's in 1978, our president, Jimmy Carter at the time, deregulated the airline industry. And that all sounded great for us in the airline business, because we thought, well, finally, we're going to get to charge what we think the market will bear. Before, we had to go to the CAB, Civil Aeronautics Board, and say, look, we want to fly to Birmingham, we want to charge $50. And they said, well, you can go, but you're going to charge $40. So those were the days you had to go ask permission to do everything. But in a deregulated market, in the U.S. in particular, we can fly where we want to. As long as there's capacity at the airport, we can go there. We can charge whatever the market bears. And obviously the market has settled down. The airline industry, those of you who don't follow us that close, since the inception of flying, since Orville and Wilbur had this great idea of taking an airplane and fly it around, we've never made any money. As an industry as a whole, we've never made a profit. Pretty sad statistics for the airline business. But Delta is a bit above the cut from everybody else. We have been pretty profitable until we went through our problems in 2005 when we filed bankruptcy. But we're back to profitability. In our third year of profitability, this coming year we'll make a profit before the year's out. But the key thing about an airline policy that we need to keep in mind, we're not advocating the government to come control us. They still do in a lot of ways, especially with the Department of Commerce, especially with DOT, especially with the FAA, which we need that guidance and that support for safety purposes. We're not advocating changing any of that. There are a lot of parameters to a national airline policy, and I'll tell you real quickly, the Chinese get it. They've got a national airline policy. They take care of their national airlines. Our government doesn't. They don't have a policy. They really don't care whether you sink or swim in this business. And we're not asking for a handout. Don't misinterpret what I'm saying. We don't want any government money. We want some help in the marketplace where we deal with. One of the issues with a national airline policy is the XM Bank. I'm sure most of you have heard of the XM Bank. And they loan money to all sorts of entities that are trying to get started in this world. And they particularly loan money to foreign national airlines at a much lower interest rate than we, the U.S. airlines, can get. And that's one of the things that we want to change. We think belongs in a national airline policy is, hey, let's take the XM Bank and you guys stick to what you do best. That's loan money to industry, manufacturing, export. And if you're going to loan money to the airline business, loan it to us the same as you do to the foreign national carriers. And we'll see where that goes. This airline policy is, obviously, we don't even have it on paper yet. Like we're debating it with Congress and we're making the rounds in Washington with all of our members and trying to get them to understand how important the national airline policy will be. Open skies is another segment of national airline policy. Today, if we want to fly to some international destination, we do have to go to the DOT, Department of Commerce, and say, we want to fly somewhere. There's actually a treaty between the U.S. government and that government where we wish to fly. It has to be negotiated between our government and theirs. The bad news with that situation, we're not in the room. The U.S. airlines are not a part of that discussion. We can tell the U.S. DOT where we want to go. And hey, go in there and negotiate the best deal you can for us, guys. They may come out with something that we never asked for. so we kind of have to get what they can negotiate sometimes, and we, the airline industry, then have to compete on a domestic basis within the U.S. Okay, who's going to get that? Let's say we ask for a new service to somewhere in Ireland. Let's say we're going to Dublin. Let's say we don't fly to Dublin, and we ask for service to Dublin, and the U.S. government gets that included in the treaty. Well, then we, the U.S. airlines, all have to put into what we call a route case development issue and put together a package of why that route ought to be given to Delta versus America versus United versus anybody. And they sit down and look at this package, and we try to get every political animal we can think of to write letters on our behalf. Chambers of Commerce, economic development organizations such as yours, to say, here's why we think Delta would be a better case to fly from Atlanta to Dublin versus someone else. Long, laborious process. That needs to be streamlined in another way. We're promoting what we call open skies. Hey, if we want to fly somewhere, we ought to be able to go there, as long as that country has capacity in their airport. The fare structure shouldn't be subsidized as it is today for foreign flag carriers. Japan Airlines got $1 billion from their government last year. It's kind of tough to compete with somebody who's got $1 billion head start on you, and you're dealing in the same marketplace, flying to the same city pairs. So all we want is just an even playing field to be able to compete. Open skies is very important. That means Germany has open skies today. We can fly anywhere in Germany we want to. All we got to do is notify the government we're coming. You got it. The fare structures, whatever we'd like it to be, and that obviously is determined by the marketplace. Another segment of the national airline policy is taxes. A lot of people don't realize, but you're paying a tremendous amount of federal taxes on your airline ticket. You don't pay any state taxes. Good news. You do pay quite a bit of federal taxes. To give you an example, the so-called sin taxes in the world, alcohol, tobacco, and firearms, they have lower taxes than you have on an airline ticket. So we're asking, hey guys, let's take a look at it. We're not looking for a free ride, but it needs to be more on an even basis. That needs to be in the national airline policy as well. We want to be able to compete on a worldwide basis. Obviously, that's what the national airline policy does. But I mentioned China a moment ago. They have a policy. And they considered their airlines as a national air system, which it really is. I mean, let's just think about what kind of commerce. All of you being economic developers understand this better than anyone. How important it is to have service, air service to another community. I mean, Atlanta, we were talking about this earlier this morning in another meeting. Atlanta's a great city. It's our home. But there's no way that Atlanta could sustain the air service that we provide today here if it was just dependent upon the traffic coming from Atlanta. Even with Atlanta roughly around 6 million people in the MSA here, it couldn't support the over 1,000 flights we have a day out of here. The only reason that works is because this is a hub. We're flying people through here just to be changing planes to connect to some other destination. So it would be a much smaller hub if Atlanta had to depend on just the traffic generated here, what we call OND traffic, originating in the destination traffic. Sorry you have to put up with that, but that's the sound of money to me. But anyway, we definitely need to take the airline industry, the government does, and take a look at our national airline policy, something we're working extremely hard. We're going to need your help when the time comes. We're going to ask for it to support us in any way you can, and hopefully we can get this done very soon. I don't know if we got time for a question. Where might go? If we're going to take questions, here it is in the back. You want to take some questions, Mike? Yeah, okay. Yes, we do. So that kind of really sums it up. We're supportive of the national airline policy. We're going to need your help. We're going to need every political animal we can come across. I mentioned before. So please look out. There'll be something coming to you soon on that issue to help us out in Washington get that done. Now I'll take questions. Yes, sir. Hey. Good questions. We have 36,000 employees in Georgia, 80,000 system-wide around the world. The sixth runway is something that every airport has to provide a master plan to the FAA. They normally have 15-year plans. 15-year master plan for this airport expires next year. So we're already in the process of working with the Department of Aviation to build a new master plan for the future. In that master plan, we, Delta for sure, are supporting a 6th runway to be built in the existing airport space that we already have. We'll see how that goes. The last master plan, I served on the master planning committee, was a 2-year process. And we had a 6th runway in that particular master plan. But at the very end, when we got through completing the 5th runway, we finally agreed not to consider the 6th runway at the present time. Runways, as you know, in the airline world are difficult things to accomplish. It took us 22 years, basically, from the first time we had the idea to build a 5th runway till it opened. Long time. We got a lot of governments here. This airport's owned and operated by the city of Atlanta, but none of it's in the city of Atlanta. It's 90% of it's in Clayton County, about 10% of it in Fulton County. The main passenger terminal building, Concourse A, and about 1/3 of B is in the city of College Park. We've got a hangar over in this corner here that's in the part of the city of East Point. Our res center across the street's in the city of Havel. So you can see we got a lot of governments that have some interest in what's going on at this airport. We got to try our best to keep them happy. So we've got a lot of intergovernmental agreements around here for them. But the 6th runway is definitely something on our radar. And a lot of people ask me if that leads into a second airport. They want to start considering a second airport. But we see a lot of potential growth for this airport at this point in time. So we're not looking at a second airport. We're thinking we got plenty of capacity here. Another runway, there's plenty of room even for a 7th runway at this airport. Technology is coming along fast, which is going to give us the ability to really expand this operation even more so. It's what they call next gen. Long answer to your question. But the airlines today operate on a system that's put together in World War II. And that is, if you have your pilots, you fly point to point for the most part. You fly one waypoint to this highway in the sky. You don't really fly directly to Birmingham like you think you do, or to Miami, whatever. You go to the points back and forth. But with next gen, which is a satellite navigation system, we'll be able to cut that time down tremendously and give more capacity when you do have the ground space, like for a runway system. I hope that answered that. Number of flights, over 1,000 a day out of here, out of Atlanta, into 59 different countries. Yes, it's just Delta. Probably close to 2 when you count everybody. I don't know the total number for all the airlines, but it's pretty close to 2,000. Yes. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Carol, how's the new international terminal coming along?
It's doing great. It's of course open and operating. It opened in May the 15th. Pretty expensive facility. A lot of you probably read about it. It's $1.2 billion to build that facility. And the reason it was so expensive, only 12 gates. The reason it was so expensive, we had to build a new roadway system, so you can now come in off the east side of the airport, go directly into the international terminal. So if you're flying out internationally, think about that on your next flight. A lot less congestion than going around to the west side and going through the terminal, getting on the train. Much nicer. The new terminal now prevents you from to recheck your bags when you're terminating here in Atlanta, which was a TSA and Immigration and Customs problem. But that's solved with the new terminal, so it's doing great. Matter of fact, we're flying a lot of domestic service, and I flew to Houston the other day. My daughter lives in Houston, and we flew out of the international terminal. Got a lot of new concessionaires there, different companies that we've never had before. So you'll enjoy it. It's a beautiful facility, a little expensive, but pretty nice. Yes, sir. Yeah, I do. Oh, sure. Yeah, I happen to be the chairman of our museum. And this facility here that you're in was built in 1941, and we preserved this. This hangar and the other hangar behind me here, where you saw most of the older airplanes. In 1995, we decided to, 1990, someone had the bright idea, why don't we go find an original Delta DC-3, if we can find it, and restore it. We found that airplane. It was being used as a cargo carrier out of San Juan, Puerto Rico. We bought it, flew it in here, and completely overhauled it. It took 5 years to overhaul it. And I hope some of you had a chance to see the DC-3. Looks better than the day it ever rolled out of Douglas. I can tell you, it's a beautiful airplane. Inside is totally stainless steel. It's a magnificent airplane. It's won every award that airplane of that type can win. Oshkosh is a big air show. It's been to Oshkosh 3 different times and won an award every time for the top restored airplane. The next airplane we have in there is a travel air, which I would say is the first airplane we flew passenger zone, which is a fabric airplane. I have to tell you a quick story. We celebrated 70 years of passenger service in 2005, and 2005. And we decided we were just going to recreate the first route that Delta ever flew. And that first route was from Lovefield in Dallas, Texas, to Shreveport to Monroe, where Delta was headquartered for many years, to Jackson to Atlanta. So they decided, okay, we need somebody to go be a speaker, to fly on these planes and do this. And they looked at me and I said, okay, I'll go do it. So we started off in Lovefield, made a speech, and I got on the DC-3 and we flew over to Shreveport. The next flight I was going to fly the travel air with a pilot, a co-pilot, and mechanic. We got in the plane and it was pouring down rain. And the plan was to fly at 3,000 feet over to Monroe, the home of Delta, where it began. And so we got on the plane, the captain had his own GPS. He hung it up on the rearview mirror there. And I said, hey, you're cheap. You can't do that. So we got up and the GPS wouldn't work. It was just such bad weather. So he said, let's go down to about 2,000 feet. So looking at the window, he calls the tower in Monroe, and he said, tower, this is Delta right station 1, looking for clearance to land. No response. So he said it again. This female voice comes over the radio and said, I heard you the first time, honey, but I can't see you on radar. He said, okay. She said, so where are you? She said, that's what I'm calling you for. I don't know where I am. She said, well, that's not good. She said, what do you see out the window? So he looks at me, Harold, what do you see out there? I see an interstate. What do you see up front? I see a river. She said, turn left at the river. Turned left to the river, came on along, he said, see the water tower? I said, yes, in Monroe, the water tower, we got that. Go around behind the water tower, we landed. So he got back on the PAs, and we're coming here to celebrate 75 years of air passenger service for Delta. She said, welcome home, honey. But the key thing, we got there, and I was supposed to make a talk, and this lady showed up. It was a Delta flight attendant in 1941, in her uniform, with her husband in his World War II fighter pilot uniform, and they stole the show. They were two great people. They were both in their 90s. They were just, I mean, it was unbelievable. They just took everything. I don't know that I'm talking. I'm talking to these people. They know the history of this airplane. They did a great job, and they just decided to do it. Didn't tell anybody they were coming. Just showed up. It was a great day. But we flew those airplanes back and forth into Atlanta. And we had about probably 20,000 Delta employees on the ramp when we landed here to come in and celebrate our 70th anniversary. So got a lot of history here. We're fixing to do a $6 million renovation to this facility. So hopefully you'll come back and you'll see how much nicer it's going to be. We hadn't spent a whole lot of bucks. This is really and truly owned and operated and ran by the employees. The company really doesn't put any money other than they give us the space. But everything about all the exhibits you see are taken care of by employees. We have a museum director, who's Tiffany May. Tiffany made it back. I told her to come by here. But she's a great lady, and she knows every square inch of this, all of the displays you see. If anybody get a chance to go on 102 while ago on ship 102, anyway, it's a museum in itself inside. If you get a chance before you leave, go through it. It shows the history of the airplane and the day the employees gave it to the company to now. So, thanks for asking that question. Great museum. Anyone else? Thank you all very much. Appreciate you coming out.
Harold, thank you so much. This is such an interesting place. It's great to hear the history and also to see